And joining us, the lead analyst at ESPN, Tim Legler. He is a great follow. He's doing sit-downs. He's doing chalk talk, all sorts of the cool stuff that people have been begging to see more of from people like Tim Legler over at ESPN. And it's been awesome to see. Tim, thanks for coming on the Fan Hotline. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm super stoked because we're going to call real basketball tonight. You know, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of preseason basketball, so get me some real games that count. And where better to start than tonight? The game we're going to have, which is going to be the Cavaliers and Knicks in the Garden. Two teams I think that most people consider to be the favorites in the Eastern Conference going into the season. So I just cannot wait to get going tonight.
Well, we started the show talking about how much pressure there is on the Cavs, and we're a little bit split about it because nationally, teams or the people that I see talking about the Cavs don't seem to be putting them in the same category as, say, Oklahoma City, but yet everybody has them as the 1 or 2 seed coming out of the East. So what does that mean to you when it comes to pressure?
No, I think there's a lot of pressure. I mean, I think it's, you can't by acting like it's not there, it doesn't go away. There is pressure because of the 2 regular seasons that the Cavaliers just put together back to back, and then not being able to play as well as they needed to, or be as healthy as they needed to in the postseason to make even a legitimate, serious run at getting to the finals. They haven't done that either year, despite this incredible regular season they had a year ago. So yes, the pressure's there, and particularly when I describe it this way: these 2 teams tonight have had the path cleared for them, because I can put the Knicks in the same category. Now, the Knicks did go to the conference finals last year, but again, they had great regular seasons. They brought in this transcendent player in Jalen Brunson, and since he's been here, they've had great regular seasons. Can't get it done in the postseason. Now they've made a coaching change as a result of it, despite the fact that Tom Thibodeau took them to a place they hadn't been in 25 years. They still made a change. That's how much pressure was on the Knicks. Same amount of pressure, I think, on the Cavs. Now, I don't expect a coaching change necessarily. They already made that change in bringing Kenny Atkinson. But the pressure's there because Boston's dealing with their best player being out pretty much all year, although Tatum's talking about coming back at the end of the year. And Indiana doesn't have Tyrese Halliburton all season. So you're talking about the 2 teams that went to the finals from the East the last 2 years. They're not the same teams. Now the path has been cleared for Cleveland and New York. So for both of these teams, I really will put it this way. If they don't do it this year, when the hell are they? That's the way I'm looking at both of these teams. Assuming they stay healthy, one of these 2 teams should get to the finals this year. That's the way they should be viewing it. And there'll be other challenges in the East. We'll talk about those too. But for me, that's how I'm looking at it. So, yes, there's a lot of pressure, I think, on both of these teams because of their track record the last few years in the postseason.
Tim Legler joins us, ESPN. How does Evan Mobley get to that next step where he becomes that 1%er, that unicorn that we want him to be, that really the Cavs need him to be if they want to win a title?
Well, I think it's going to continue to be increased volume in terms of his importance in the offense. And look, I don't know if Evan Mobley's ever going to be a guy that's going to develop, this escapability with his handle so that he can go get a shot anytime he wants in a one-on-one situation. Because, that tier of player that we're talking about, those are the guys that are first-team All-NBA guys. Those are the guys that are, competing for MVPs. I don't know that Evan Mobley still has that much to grab offensively, but I do think the things that he does do well offensively, I still think there's a level of aggressiveness. And you've already seen an uptick, but I think there's another level for that for him. And if he does that and the Cavs have the same level of regular season success, now you're talking about a guy who's then going to be pushing for, first-team All-League, second-team All-League, like one of those type of guys. So I do think there's more to grab just in terms of his mindset and the way the Cavs use him offensively. I don't know that he's ever going to be a guy that you could just put on an island with any defender and he can get his own against anyone. Like that, those guys are a little bit of a different category. So I'm as excited as anybody. The growth he's already shown to this point in his career has been pretty incredible. Defensive Player of the Year to boot. So I'm excited to see what's the next leap look like for Evan Mobley this season.
Tim Legler joining us on the Fan Hotline right now. So that's Evan Mobley, but Donovan Mitchell has been their best player. And I'm curious where you think he sits when it comes to the superstars in the league, because when he is on, mean, he looks like Dwayne Wade. Like, he can do everything you need. He can score at every level on the court. But for whatever reason, despite the transcendent playoff performances he's had where he'll score 50 if you need him to, he is so spent after a couple of rounds, and he hasn't been able to break through to the conference finals.
Yeah, it's the same thing with him, and he had the same issues in Utah. He was the alpha on those teams offensively, and they were great defensive teams. And then they'd get into the postseason, and they'd run into an opponent that was typically better, but it requires in that situation your best player to be able to figure out a way to not only put up big numbers, but to do it efficiently, and most importantly, to do it in the big spots when you have to, in those game-defining and series-defining moments that you're going to get. And that has been where Donovan Mitchell has had a hard time throughout his career. And I think, you saw it again a year ago in the closeout game with Indiana when he goes 8 for 25 from the field. Those moments, those stages, those nights, those spots, those are the ones that are the tipping points for Donovan Mitchell. No one can deny his talent. He's a first-team All-League NBA player a year ago, and that was deserving. Now it's got to be in those spots. It's 2-2, and it's a 2-point game in Game 5 of a series this year in the postseason. Those are the moments when Donovan Mitchell needs to be at his best and be efficient. And most importantly, I think in some of those spots, make sure you're not settling for the shot that the defense wants you to take, like a step back deep three with a hand in your face. Get to the line, get something going to the rim, get something in transition. Those are the areas in which he excels, and that's what he's going to be defined by. And this season may be more important than ever because, again, with what the top of the East looks like, I mean, this is right there for the taking for the Cleveland Cavaliers and really the Knicks. I would put in the same category. So that's what we're going to be judging him by at the end of the season. How did he rise to the occasion, and how did he perform in those moments that turn series, that win series, that define series?
Tim Legler joining us, ESPN. The Cavaliers made a move from J.B. Bickerstaff to Kenny Atkinson. Hey, we like Kenny, but hey, J.B. Bickerstaff's proven he's still a really, really good coach up in Detroit. What is Mike Brown expected to do for the Knicks that Tom Thibodeau didn't?
I think a couple of things. I think, first of all, I do think he's going to have more trust to go a little bit deeper in his rotation. Now, Tom Thibodeau got beat up pretty badly in his time in Chicago, Minnesota, and then New York, running guys into the ground. I do think that's a little bit overstated. I think that some of that criticism has been unfair. But I do think there is a trust factor that Mike Brown is going to have to show that Tom Thibodeau was reluctant to at times. So that's first. And look, they've gone out and they've added some pieces that they're really counting on. Jordan Clarkson, Yabusele from Philadelphia coming in. Both of those guys going to play major roles. Hopefully Mike Brown gets a healthy Mitchell Robinson all year, which Tom Thibodeau didn't get. So there's some additional pieces that Mike Brown's going to have that he's going to have to trust. But I think the other thing is this. The usage rate for Jalen Brunson on the ball is, I don't think, sustainable to be able to run through series after series in the postseason and get through these teams that you're going to have to. So I think seeing him off the ball more, seeing him where they play faster so that even if he is on ball, that he's not dealing with the level of traffic and that he's got to pound the ball through and control the ball the extent he does. That's just very difficult for guards. Anybody that's under 6'4", that's hard to play that way in the NBA if that guy is dominating the ball to that extent and shooting the ball to that extent. It's just hard to be able to be efficient enough in the big spots. I just talked about it with Donovan Mitchell. So I think that's going to be the biggest change, and I'm looking forward to seeing it tonight. How much different does their pace look? How much different does Jalen Brunson off the ball or not being the constant initiator of the offense in ball screen? How different does that look? Which will make them more viable to me, in my eyes, when they get into the postseason. But again, I'm waiting to see it like everybody else because preseason is not an indicator of it. It's just not. Too many guys are not playing. You're not playing top-tier defenses. So we got to see it tonight when it really matters, and that's the first thing we're going to be looking for in the first half of this game tonight is what their pace looks like, how his usage looks.
Tim Legler with us. It's great to have you, someone who's been breaking down a lot of the X's and O's, to kind of explain something that we've been having trouble with in Cleveland, which is why does Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland look so beautiful throughout the regular season? Why the sets that Atkinson uses, the spacing, the freedom of movement, all that stuff, why does that go away in the playoffs where there's no proof of concept of those two working together at a high level?
Well, listen, I think part of it is because when you start to get into a postseason and you have an opponent now that is just focused on you, there are a lot of teams and offenses and styles, and the Cavs are in this category, very difficult to deal with in the regular season. This team is coming in, they were historically good offensively last year, and now they're coming in, and what did you have to talk about? If you had probably a shoot-around or a walkthrough and a film session, and then a scouting report. Now here they come. There's a lot of situations in the league that's very difficult to deal with. Dealing with OKC's defense when you're preparing for them and them only in the regular season is very difficult. So for the Cavs, offensively, they can do their thing. When you get into a series, and now, first of all, you've had 48 to 72 hours minimum going into the first game to prepare for just them. That's different than the regular season. And then the adjustments game by game where you can really start to tighten up the margins on how you guard them and taking away some of the things they like to do. And again, you're talking about two guards that take a lot of jump shots. And so in the playoffs, there's the pressure of it. The physicality of the defense means you're being held more, grabbed more, and it's just more. There's more fatigue that's going to be there in a playoff game, and the adjustments defensively to try to put you in spots and take away things that were very successful for you in the regular season, individually and collectively. You add it all up, and it just becomes more difficult to maintain the same level all the way through the postseason. And that's where I think for Cleveland, one of the things they have going for them is the fact that they've got balance they've got bigs, they've got shooting, they've got elite level guys that you could put on ball with Garland and Mitchell. So they've got balance across the board, and they shouldn't be so reliant on Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell having to make a lot of jump shots in a playoff series to win it. And I think that's kind of what teams are going to force them into. Can they overcome that challenge? That's the biggest question for Cleveland. And there's no doubt they're going to have a great regular season. There's no doubt they're going to be great offensively. All that matters for them, and it's the same thing with the Knicks, none of this stuff in the regular season is going to matter a whole hell of a lot. What do they do in those big spots once they get into the postseason? That's what their entire year is going to be judged by.
Year 23 for LeBron. It's absolutely crazy that he could be still playing and playing at a high level when he's on the floor. But the problem is he's not going to be there for at least a month to start out the year. What do you think this looks like when all is said and done with LeBron and a team that's hoping to make a big-time run?
It's a good question. I'm waiting to see myself. Obviously, this is weird because he's going into the year dealing with an injury, and that's not typical for LeBron. It reminds us the guy's human. He's in his 40s. He's 23 years in the league, which is actually kind of incredible. I'm trying to think. I was 2 years at ESPN when he came into the league. It was my 25th year. I'm about to start. So he and I are sort of came into the league about the same time in terms of the analyst and him playing. But he's proving that he's human. So now we're going, okay, well, is this going to be something that he's going to be dealing with a lot of different things this year? And I think their approach to LeBron is going to be different, which is going to affect their regular season. I do think they're going to do everything they can to preserve him and try to have him upright and healthy, come mid-March, late March, as you get ready for that start of the playoffs, which means they're going to sacrifice some nights in the regular season. It's not going to be good enough what they have. I think you saw it last night. So I'm as curious as anybody. What does this look like now that he's dealing with an injury going into the season, which is not typical for him? And is this something where there's going to be this cumulative effect? Are things going to start to finally catch up to this guy that looks superhuman for all these years? We'll see. I know this. I was watching the game last night. He's sitting on the bench in street clothes, and he did not look like a happy man. And I don't know what that was. I was trying to read his body language. He wasn't super engaged in any of the huddles. He wasn't really interactive with his teammates. As the final horn was sounding, you could see him getting up and just walking to the tunnel. Like he wasn't lingering around, kind of talking to his teammates. So I don't know if what he was looking at on the court. Was he saying to himself, man, this is going to be tough because they were not very good defensively last night. Super Luka, dependent offensively. I don't know what's going through his mind. I wish I had a thought bubble on him last night to figure out what that look on his face was. But he doesn't look very happy right now. And part of it's, look, he's hurt. But I don't know if he's looking at his team and thinking, man, this is going to be good enough in an absolutely loaded Western Conference. And all those teams at the top got better.
Tim Legler with us. I know we're pressed for time, but I did want to get your response to this because you're warming up. You're the lead analyst now at ESPN. Last night, the league kicks off on NBC, and everybody goes down the nostalgia road. You played in an era where those games were broadcast on NBC. What were you thinking? And as a competitor, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it was cool. And look, it's funny because we're competitors, but we're also partners. And I think all of us genuinely are pulling for each other to have the best product we can, because at the end of the day, you want eyeballs on the league. We all want to collectively advance this for the league. And I think we're making steps in that direction, just with the narrative and what we're talking about and the things we're breaking down. And I think that's been an emphasis. I think the league wants that. I think all of the networks involved now want that. So for me, it was pretty cool to hear the iconic music. And yeah, it did kind of throw you back to that time when we were all used to that and watching that. And I played an NBC games, and it was very cool to see all of that. And look, I will say this, everything that you're going to see here early in terms of NBC and Amazon, and us, honestly, because it's myself, Richard Jefferson, and Mike Breen will be on the call tonight. We'll be calling the NBA Finals down the road, and we've called exactly 2 preseason games together. That's the only games we've called together as a group. Same with those guys. Like, this is all going to be work in progress, and so let's not be too quick to judge one way or the other. This is going to play out over time, and hopefully all of us put our best foot forward down the road as we get better and gel together and give everybody the best year they've had in terms of coverage for the NBA. I mean, that's our goal. It was cool last night watching it. It's just going to get better and better across the board for all of the entities involved that cover it. And I know for myself, I'm going to hopefully do everything I can to pair with my teammates tonight and give the best coverage that we can tonight and going forward all the way through the NBA Finals.
Tim Legler, ESPN. Hey, real quick, did you go to Disney World recently?
I did, yeah. Unfortunately, it's like my second home because, we get these perks because Disney obviously owns ESPN. So we get all these perks with the parks, and I've got a little guy who literally thinks that's his second home. And we live close enough that we can just shoot over there in a quick drive. So, yes, I'm at Disney World far too often for me to even admit.
I went with my wife and our friends for her 40th birthday, and I was walking to the Hall of Presidents. I looked over and I go, that's Tim Legler over there. And my wife goes...
So that's funny you say the Hall of Presidents because I can't, for the life of me, get anybody that goes with me to go to the Hall of Presidents.
That's awesome.
So it's funny you just said that because I'm a history nerd. I like that kind of stuff. But when we're there, and that's at Magic Kingdom, when we're there, I can't get anybody to go in there. My wife, my almost 4-year-old, we're doing all the other stuff. But yeah, we're there a lot, believe me.
We go there a lot, and I'm sure that I can get you to go with me the next time we go, which will probably be in like a month, knowing my wife.
And Legs, can we get you to power rank top 3 favorite presidents? Let's go.
Are we really going to do this?
Yes.
Right now?
Come on.
You're going to turn this into some sort of political conversation.
No, just historically speaking, of course.
Just a friendly power rank.
I would do
How
it.
about I'll just stick with my favorite all time because it was like the first one when I started to know what any of this stuff meant, and it's Ronald Reagan, of course. Those Reagan years. That was when I first became aware of what all this stuff meant. But I'll stop right there.
Outstanding. Tim, thank you so much for the time. All the very best to you and yours.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thank you. The great Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst, Legs, ESPN.